Hello everyone, Packy here. Welcome to this week's project. This is one that Nova started back in the summertime. Let's take a look.
First off, let me show you how dirty the water is now. That's like nasty. Blech. Hello friends, this is another installment of what's going to go into my house when I move in. This is going to be close to the entry door. It'll be for coats and hats and umbrellas, and this will be for keys. Anyways, the plan right now is for me to scuff sand the piece and then cover it with a semi-transparent stain because, quite frankly, I'm not going to be able to have the time to completely strip all of this off and paint it with stain it with a whole new stain. I've gotten another job, so that's really exciting. I'm really excited to start. I'll be getting all the benefits. It's very encouraging to me. I feel like I'm finally getting started on my adult life. That's kind of scary. But that's the plan for right now, and I'll keep recording and keep updating you. So excited to see you in 1 second.
Hi, my name is Packy, creator of Pack Rat's Shack. I upcycle furniture, build out of pallet wood, finish interior spaces, and have a vendor booth for my creations. Welcome to my world. She has gotten a great start on it. She's cleaned all of it quite well and taken some things off already.
Yep. Hey, I'm gonna start sanding this and continuing on the project. So let's go. Woo!
Aw, I miss Popo Pacho and that little Pooh Bear hanging around all the time. Aren't they so cute? Nova wasn't really fond of this decorative element at the top and wanted help removing it. So I take the time to make a few suggestions on how she should continue her process. So then you need to clean all of that up, and even all in there needs cleaned up still.
I tried to.
You have to get the sandpaper and get it flat and put it between.
That's what I did yesterday.
You had it like a flat little sheet that you
Yes.
because that looks still really bad. Yeah, see, you see how that's skirting?
Okay. I'll do it again. But
Yeah. And then all of these sides need.
yeah.
What else do you want?
Should we take this out instead of just glue it? Because I don't know, it's not going in very much. But it goes off to a point right here.
I think it'd be best to remove it and put it in with that 2-part epoxy wood filler.
Okay.
You want to show yourself doing all that, right? Because you're going to have to put that 2-part epoxy filler off right here to resand that.
Yeah.
So the problem here is if you pull this aside to fit those better, and it's just gonna make this crack bigger. Are you wanting to take it out?
Yeah, kind of. Because I don't see any way that we're going to be able to close this crack and this crack and the crack down here and this crack and this crack. Because it's all glued.
And the discussion progresses to a point that she just decides to take the mirror off completely. There are too many joints separating within this area to take care of it while it's still in place. Plus, it's hard for her to get in and clean off all of the excess glue that's exposed in those loose joints. This will help her to get into all of those areas and scrape the surfaces clean so that on reinstallation of the mirror piece, the new glue will be able to hold onto the wood. At some point, she did get a good start on her paint job, and here is where she left the piece, never to return to it after she moved out. And it looks like she decided on black chalk paint instead of the semi-transparent stain she had mentioned in the intro. There are still some more areas that need to come apart to get that glue and crud scraped off. This will help to get those strong, solid joints when I go to re-glue and clamp them back into place. Here, I thought this would be a quick finish since Nova already got going on it, but the more I work on it, the more I see to do, and the more ideas I have on what could be done to this piece to make it better and bring it into modern lifestyles. You'll have to forgive my appearance and or lack thereof in this video. While I was working on this, I was actually pretty much half sick through the whole time. So I was just trying to get a little bit done every day while I had some energy to do so. Here I am fitting in a scrap piece to replace this missing section. It takes me 2 tries to get the angles just right. I suspected it would, so when I was ripping my first piece to the proper width, I went ahead and ripped a second piece to size as well. Then I continue using the first piece until I'm sure that I'm getting the right angles. Therefore, I'll have the correct information to transition onto the second piece when I want to get it just right. One thing that I discovered that affected the angles was this actual piece. If you held the length along the original piece, it actually tapered down. So I need to go ahead and correct this piece and rip it down from 0 to an extra 1/8 of an inch off of this far end. So it looks like we got to start from 0 to an 1/8 off. Now that I finally got that to fit properly along the length, I can tidy up the angles a little bit further. You'll have to forgive me. I talk to myself a lot while working through difficult tasks. So, did I mention I was sick? Yeah, that's causing a little bit more difficulty with thinking this through. But I finally get it, and now that it fits, I need to sand all this texture off. I'm hoping that the one thing you are able to take away from this section of video, especially anyone who is intimidated about making angle cuts, is that you don't have to get it perfect the first try. You can continue to use that same piece until you get each end correct, and then you just use that piece and transcribe it as a pattern on another piece, and then that second piece will be perfect. And plus, that's the way you learn, is just by trial and error and practice. I'm doing one last dust off before painting a coat on all of these raw sections to catch them up to the rest of the piece. I then continue behind the scenes on layering the paint on until I have complete full coverage on the whole piece. Wow, this day I actually put shoes on. It must be one of my more energetic days. And here I'm trying to figure out if I want to stick with the boring old mirror that came with the piece, or if I want to do something a little more fun and interesting. Obviously, I decided to have a little more fun. Besides, the mirror had a lot of scrapes and scratches on it anyway. So I'm going to start off with sealing this raw piece of Luan, and I'm hoping that this will help the installation process of the decoupage paper. I always struggle with air bubbles, and I'm going to see if letting a coat of sealant dry into the wood first will help the process. After that is dry, I sand off any wood fibers that may have raised due to the moisture of the sealant. I then install the decoupage paper using the same clear coat. This does work really well. I just have a few minor air bubbles, mainly in this one little section. And I did try to press these out. It did minimize them, and I'm hoping that while it dries, it'll pull it in even further. I actually think that if I did do another clear coat after I sanded off the raised fibers, that would have totally sealed in that raw piece of wood. Therefore, no air could have transitioned through the wood at all. Here I'm setting my guide for a 4-inch rip cut. I make sure that I'm removing the edge with the most damage. It took me more than a minute to figure out how to cut my triangles, so I'm going to skip trying to show you all my trials and error that got me to the first triangle. Now that I've ripped my other boards down to the 4-inch width, I'm going to just be using my first triangle pattern to mark and cut these pieces to size for my second shorter triangle. I did end up cutting my two sides a little bit shorter to fit this triangle properly. Then I go ahead and sand down all of my cut edges before gluing and finish nailing them together. There was one corner that really wasn't pulling in tight, so I did decide to use a small wood screw to accomplish that. Then I had to figure out the best way to router this edge along the inside of each triangle so the pans could fit down inside and leave the top edge flat for trim. Here is where the tip of the screw busted through the other side. I just grind that off and fill all my holes and seams with wood filler and let that dry in. Then I use a 180 sanding disc to sand down both the boxes and round over all of the edges. I fit the freshly spray painted pans in and get ready to cut and install the top trim to finish these decorative boxes out. You can see I am keeping these as simple as possible. I ripped down some pieces into 1¼ inch strips. I started out with cuts at a 45, but then they needed a little bit of tweaking here and there, so I just adjust each end of each piece as I go along. Then I fill all of these nail holes and seams before sanding and rounding over all of these edges. Then I set these boxes aside to dry before staining and move on to installing my decoupage panel. I had to cut this down to size on my table saw. And wow, this is way better than that mirror. I'm really getting tired of leaving fingerprints behind every time I touch this piece, so after I finish painting it to complete coverage, I do another dust-free wipe down and then start spraying on the polyurethane. I use Minwax in a satin finish, and I do several coats until I'm satisfied with the uniformity and coverage. Do any of the other YouTubers out there ever find that they get everything set up, push their record button, get the whole project done, only to find out later that not a single bit of it was recorded? Am I the only idiot that does this? I can't be the only one that does this. Jeez, that's the worst. So here I had mixed up some of my Dixie Belle pine cone with water to make a wash. This is how I stained the wood. I brushed it onto the pieces and let it soak in, and then I wipe off the excess. And now we have some nice warm wood tones to add to this stark black piece. Oh, and I also cut some corner shelves too. After the paint wash had dried, I noticed that you could see where some of the wood filler had been even though I sanded it off before it could dry on. I'm going to see if that subsides while I'm sealing the piece with this Rust-Oleum satin clear coat. I do 2 coats with dry time in between. And no, it really didn't make those noticeable spots go away like I was hoping it would. It would probably be a good idea to go back and do some surface touch-ups to blend those areas in a little bit better. Now I'm trying to install the decorative frame. This piece still does not fit into the opening very well. It was that way when we removed it, but we were hoping that when we tightened up some of the loose seams that maybe it would alter the position and help it fit in better. Now it's really tight on one side and really loose on the other. I just need to go with it because this is the piece and I don't know what to fix to make it look even on both sides at this point. I tried to measure and install it as symmetrical as possible, but I had a wee bit of a problem while securing it in. That's why I said that wouldn't happen. Well, now that that's over, I can install my add-ons, which change the original function of this piece to a more modern use. But I had to correct the angle on my corner brace first. Then I glue and clamp them into place so that after they dry, I can screw them into place for the long haul. So I couldn't push it up any tighter than that. there or that side would come down, so it's just not exactly square. And how I accomplished that was by clamping on a flat piece with an angle for the back of the clamp to go against. I only have enough clamps to do one side at a time because they're all on another project right now. So while I work through those, I will go ahead and install the hanging brackets. This piece came with 6, but I really think that 4 will be plenty for this piece's new use. I really couldn't get my drill inside this tight location well enough to countersink my screw heads as much as I would like to have. But it is the underside of a shelf, so hopefully they won't be seen. While I was installing my triangle boxes underneath, I realized that the straight edge going front to back would be a great support for the seam that I had to glue and clamp. So I go ahead and put screws on either side of the seam as well. I then glue my shelves into place with some dabs of liquid nails and secure them with a screw going through that corner back support. Now, the only thing left is a bit of touch-ups to cover my hardware and some gilding wax to finish off the highlights. How do you like the results of this piece? I can imagine it in Nova's space by the entryway being a nice organized place for her keys and her mail. With catgrass in the bottom planters and live macrame hanging planters from the hooks, the real-life foliage is sure to bring the decoupage flowers to life. Go ahead and leave your comments below on how you feel about this piece. I would love to hear your opinion. Thanks for watching to the end. I really appreciate your support, and I apologize for the delay in getting this video out. But our household fell sick again, as I'm sure many of you did too. So I lost a couple days this week. I hope you are all doing well regardless. And if you have enough energy to hit that like button, I would greatly appreciate it. And as always, until next time, stay safe out there.